Welcome back to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and with me is my guest and, of course, my co-host, Barton Nunley. And we got a lot to talk about, so let's jump right back into it and let's continue. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, you know, you guys talking about the dog stories, I got a guy call me. And there's one other point I got to make, too, but I get really quickly about the dogs. I know I talked to this guy 2 months ago. He didn't want to come on, but I talked to him for maybe a couple hours. And so he has some property, and I think he lives in Pennsylvania somewhere. I forgot. I don't know exactly where. But anyway, he's got 2 German Shepherds. Now, on his property, the guy really loves his dogs, and what he did, he set up a perimeter with that fencing where on your collar, it will zap the dog so it doesn't wander off into the woods. So his whole property was kind of set up that way, which I thought, oh man, that's kind of bold. There was after a couple of times, dogs would not go past this perimeter. And then after this perimeter, it was about 90 feet ahead. It was like the wood line. So he was telling me, so the dogs were really good about it. In fact, he never got zapped because they knew, hey, we can't do this, right? Or however that works. So they had the fencing. And so he's telling me he started hearing these growls or howls at night. But he said, Rob, it didn't really sound like a wolf. Certainly wasn't a bear, not a coyote, but it was just unusual sounds. So he said, started paying a lot more attention. Then he would hear like the wood knocks and stuff going on. And so one night, his dogs were all, you know, they're nervous. They're pacing back and forth in the house. So he says he thought maybe they go to the bathroom, whatever. He didn't hear any noise or nothing. He lets out the dogs. He says typically when he lets them out, they run around, they bark. And then all of a sudden, he goes, man, you know, time went by. A little bit of time went by, and then I realized I hadn't heard the dogs barking. So he went outside looking for his dogs. Well, he can't find his dogs. Now, as I mentioned, he's got this fencing, so he figures he knows where they would be. So he's thinking, oh, man, maybe the collar, I don't know if there's a battery operated. I don't know how that works, but he says, man, maybe something wasn't working, checking out the fence, all this. Everything seemed to be working, so he just had the intuition. He started walking into the woods, and he said he got to the wood line, and he walks in probably 8 feet in. He found both of his German Shepherds. One, they were within a couple feet of each other, and both of their necks were broken, snapped. There was no claw marks, no bite marks. They were simply just snapped. And he asked her, what I think that was. I said, well, not to speculate, but, you know, you heard all these weird growls and sounds and not a wolf. I said, you know, I'm not going to sit there, dude, you got Bigfoot on your property, right? I don't know what it was. It could have been anything, I guess. But it makes you wonder, right? And so I had this guy on the show about a Bigfoot that killed his bull. And he was talking about this stuff and how he had all these bad experiences with a Bigfoot. And can you believe, see, there's people out there. Listen, I'm not on a crusade to tell anyone that they're bad, but I'm going to tell you this, I don't trust them. And the thing that really irked me one day, this guy's on the show talking about negative on Bigfoot. You know how many people, and this is what people just don't get it, you guys, because I had so many comments, and even people in the chat were saying, well, I can't believe you're letting this guy talk bad about Bigfoot, especially in the comments, you guys. Oh, Rob, I mean, come on. Bigfoot, no way a Bigfoot did that. I think a lot of people, you guys, are kind of brainwashed into thinking that these things are just a big teddy bear. And that's dangerous thinking. And again, right. I'm not on any crusade to tell people, because I'm not going to be the guy that says Bigfoot's bad, because you know what? I'm sure there are plenty of good ones, but you got to always remember there's plenty of bad ones too.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to sit back and take apart some of these people's stories, which I have, who have contacted me to try to convince me that they were able. Okay, like I'll give you one example. This lady, she's a really nice lady. She listens to the show, and I don't want to put her on blast, but she is absolutely convinced. She agrees that Dogman is bad. She thinks Dogman is an evil thing, whatever, that it's bad. She's convinced that Bigfoot is some sort of guardian and that it will actually defend you against a Dogman. And I told her like this. I said, if you were in the ocean and you saw a school of dolphins and there were a couple tiger sharks there trying to eat you, those dolphins are not going to come over there to save you. They're just not, because it's a risk to them. So even if your theory was correct that they're against the dog man or whatever she believes, don't expect a Bigfoot to come and save you. And I told her, I said, and in fact, I think they're just as dangerous as dogmen, because I guess maybe because of the nature of my show and my stance on a lot of these so-called cryptids, when they're not really cryptids, they're really inhumanoids. I don't believe that they are good, nice, gentle forest creatures. I'm just not of that opinion. And I think a lot, and I'm going to say this, and this may be very controversial, but I'm pretty much the king of that at this point anyway. I'm going to tell you right now, I think a lot of these people are making stuff up. I'm not joking, dude. I get reports about, I'm not one of those people that cherry picks either. I don't go, oh, well, this is a story of Bigfoot being bad, so I'm going to use this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this story and throw it out because this one's of it being good. That's not what I do. But I'm telling you right now, because of my stance, I get more people that are willing to come to me and tell me their stories of their vicious behavior. And I can tell you right now, it is an absolutely a ton of information out there that is being ignored, because these people do have this narrative they want to create where Bigfoot is just this friendly, lovable forest gent, Harry and the Hendersons, and that's not the case. I mean, there was a guy who lived out here lived near Austin, outside of Austin. And I was working, I think it was in the mid 2000s, like 2005, 7, 6, in that area. And I was doing some security out there, and they had a series. There were some horses. Now I talked to you about this, Barton. Some horses that were killed, and they were trying to figure out what it was that was killing them. And they knew it wasn't a mountain lion, because when you see there's paw prints, there's no claws on the paw prints, whatever. And they had some canine prints, but it looked like it might have been like coyotes or even coy wolves maybe that were coming and eating after the fact. But something had broken a horse's neck. Now, there was no rhyme or reason. And it wasn't a full-grown horse. And it was a pony, but it wasn't like a full-grown horse. And they did, one of the guys that was doing the investigation, was a private investigator that eventually had been hired. And he was saying that he saw a large human-like footprint. It was just one footprint that was kind of off in an area where there had been some moisture or whatever. So there was kind of an indentation. And he goes, dude, I want to go back and take a plaster cast of that. I should have, taken a picture. He goes, I just kind of looked at it and I thought about it. And I went back to get the camera. And he said, and then a couple other police officers were there, and they were just kind of walking over the whatever. And he was telling me about it because he didn't want to make an issue of it, because people are going to be like, oh, okay, you believe in Bigfoot, which you're on the fringes of society with that anyway. But then, he's like, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say possibly a large humanoidal type creature may have killed this thing, how was he supposed to go around doing it? He's a young guy too, he's younger than me. And at the time I was doing security up there on the hill, up there in Comanche Trail. And he was asking me my opinion. And I told him, I said, I don't know what you can say. So I said, but you can just go ahead and give your opinion. There's this one other police officer that he worked with that she was open to the idea. He had kind of like thrown it around, Well, when he told that particular person, she was like not having it. She was like, Bigfoot would never do that. She's like, the Bigfoot, because she claimed that she had seen one when she was a teenager down by the lake, and that it just was wading in the water, and that it just like dried off, and then just walked into the woods and was, so her encounter was benign. There was nothing to it, and she was like, I didn't get an evil feeling from it. I didn't feel like it would hurt me. I just felt love and security and all this other weird, stuff. And when he brought it to her attention that it could have been a Sasquatch that killed that pony, she was like, no way. they only would kill for food, you know? And I'm like, that is the most ridiculous, you know, like, and so he couldn't even talk to her about it. So when me and him talked about it, and of course, at that time, I had collected stories, all kinds of different types of Fortean type stories. And I told him, I said, I have a lot of Bigfoot stories. Of course, a lot of them at that time consisted of, like you said, people seeing them on the side of the road, or they're walking and they see a Bigfoot, whatever. But I had a couple nasty ones where they were really aggressive and mean. And I told him, I said, I don't doubt for a second that could be the case. Well, I had no idea way back then that I was gonna have to fight an uphill battle with the narrative of Bigfoot and Dogman, that they're some sort of, like, you know, creatures that live in the forest and just want to be left alone, and they're just trying to coexist and blah blah blah. And looking at it now, it's like there's this entire industry that's been built around, you know, Bigfoot being a cool guy. You know what I mean? Like, the only time he's going to hurt you is if you mess with his, you know, his jerky, his beef jerky or something.
Yeah, no,
you know, he might come out and forearm you because you're messing with him, you know. And it's ridiculous. It is it's asinine. And I'll tell anybody, I'll argue to the floor with anybody that they're not a friendly, lovable force, giant creatures, whatever. I mean, this thing, when it killed that horse, and then there was a whole bunch of pets that had gone missing too, and not just dogs, but cats. People's cats were missing. There was a calf that had gone missing. You know, you could say, well, maybe it was hungry, but why was it taking cats? Why were people's cats missing? One lady found her cat pretty much torn apart and strewn about the yard. And she said, well, it looked like maybe a dog or something had done it, but the neighbor's dog had gone missing. I mean, you know, there was, and so, you know, the police and everybody else, you know, were coming around trying to give flyers. You know, people were like, hey, my pet's gone missing. And it was a bunch of people that were having this issue. You know, so if it wasn't a Bigfoot, then it was some sort of predator. I mean, you know, and there were no cougar tracks, and there was nothing that could point to it being a pack of coyotes. So what was it? You know, and the only thing I could think of that could take a almost a mature horse, you know, and break its neck like that would be a Squatch. I can't really think of anything. Now I got another story from a guy that he was coming, and this happened outside of Cedar Park years ago. And I would like to get him to come on the show. I don't know, you know, because he kind of doesn't want to tell, but I'm wanting to do a show about the white Bigfoot, because I think that's a whole nother species. But he was coming back into Cedar Park, and they see this thing laying on the side of the road, and it looked like it had been torn apart. And he said that I think he said he was in his late teens, and him and his parents pulled over, and they looked at it, and it was a white furred Bigfoot. He said it was just a pure white. It was a Sasquatch. He goes, you could tell the face had a primate type face. It was like a primate mixed with human, and it was white, and it was ripped apart. Its arms were torn out. And I said, do you think it was hit by a vehicle? And he goes, I don't think so. He goes, I think it was off to the side of the road and kind of in a ditch, and it looked like it had been ripped limb from limb. And the only thing I could think of that would do that would be another Sasquatch.
Yeah.
So, you know,
so we had a pony in Spotsville in 1975, and this thing choked. Her name was Dolly. This thing choked her to death with her own tie rope. So there you go. And it didn't eat any part of it. You know, it just, for pure spite or meanness or whatever, choked it to death. And so there you go. Like you say, Josh, these things are, you know, cryptids are simply natural animals awaiting classification, whereas these inhumanoids are beyond our classification, because by nature they're not natural animals, right? They're something beyond normal, and I don't think anybody will be classifying a Bigfoot species anytime soon, if ever.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Barton. What do you think about that, Rob?
I'm always torn on it, you guys. I was just going to ask the question to Barton. You don't think the Bigfoot species is a cryptid then? You just think it's inhuman?
Absolutely not. Rob, there is no such thing as a semi-human or quasi-human cryptid. So all the humanoid that people are calling cryptids are something far beyond that. Cryptids are, you have your coelacanth and your giant squid, and we're all capable of, or science and, people that do this stuff are capable of finding them and studying them in its own habitat and eventually classifying them. But no one's going to find Bigfoot, because the only time I've ever had any encounters with Bigfoot is when I'm not looking for it at all. I've been on hundreds of expeditions here in Kentucky looking for Bigfoot and never found anything. But when I'm not thinking about Bigfoot, I'm hunting or fishing or arrowhead hunting or something like that. That's when it happens. It's almost like they know what you're doing. When you get into their area, they know what you're doing, Rob. And if you'd went back to that island with 10 bazookas, you never would have saw that Bigfoot, even if it was there. That's what I say.
I think that...
Well, I don't consider myself an expert at it or anything, but I'm going by my own experiences, and I know they're true. I know they're real. I'm not making anything up. I'm always telling the truth. I've been doing it since 1975. Regardless of the ridicule, regardless of people calling me crazy or woo-woo, such a kindergarten terminology there, but it doesn't matter. As long as I tell the truth, and that's all I can do. And who believes me or who don't believe me, I have no control over that. But I'm doing my part by telling the truth. I'm not doing it for money. I'm not doing it for attention. Yep. I'm not pretending anything. I'm just telling the truth as it happened to me. And I know that it's real, and you can take that or leave it. It doesn't really matter to me. Of course, I want people to believe me because I'm telling the truth, but I realize that my experiences are way beyond the pale of a classic Bigfoot sighting. Runs across the road.
Well, it's not about sighting. Yours is like...
It looks surprised, and then it walks back into the woods. This is what I've encountered is way beyond that. So, and I've had 45 years almost to think about this stuff.
Now, Rob, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're some sort of humanoid. I think that they are more, I think there's a supernatural element to them. I think that,
no doubt,
as you said, they have that ability just to cloak or disappear on a dime, on an instance. I'm not buying the theory that they have the translucent hair and, they just disappear in the sunlight because their hair is, maybe they have that type of hair, but I think they have an ability to walk through portals. I believe in that. You might sound kind of out there. I think what I've seen certainly looked like a humanoid, but then what the hell did it turn into? I have no idea. I always reflect back to thinking about how I told you about the ape, the orangutan, how it can contort its face. Well, this thing looked like it had a kabuki mask, you guys. It looked that sinister, and I think they can manipulate us. And sometimes, you guys, I don't even know, is it really Bigfoot that we say, okay, we're saying the traditional Bigfoot. When I think Bigfoot, I think Patterson Gimlin. That to me is Bigfoot. Now, in all these people that have all these encounters, let's say, and what they're researching, do they even know what the hell they're researching? Is it really Bigfoot that they're on the trail of? What if it's just something else?
Yeah, I thought that too.
What if it's something that's maybe presenting itself to you as a Bigfoot, but when it's not even that at all? Maybe it's some entity, right?
Rob, along those lines, what do you think of this? Like, maybe like when I've done some investigating on some houses that were haunted. Okay. And it gets weird because I went into one house, and Barton knows this story, and I've told this on another show, but we went in there, me and a few of the people that I work with at PRT. There was a ninja blender that went off. Like, we walk in, I think I told Jessica this, actually. We were talking about it, and yeah, I did. And we were standing there in the kitchen, and it goes, and the lid pops off. And then the washer starts kind of moving, like, And I'm like, what is going on here, dude? And you know, when you're WTF, and I'm like, dude, okay, I can't help you. I'm not a Ghostbuster. I'm not a demonologist. So I'm going to go ahead and go. Feel free to tell me your story, but I'm not going to be able to do much else. I can pray. That's about it, you know? And so, you know, but these people, they had this dogman creature coming up to the window and communicating with their child, you know, and not even, I'd say probably 2.5 miles from that spot right there, my friend's great uncle was driving a load of hay, you know, and of course you know, it's all weighted down, you know, so you can't go real fast. And he's going over this little spot, this kind of like real narrow 1-lane bridge. And this was back in the 40s or 50s, I believe. And these two, the only thing I could describe them as is Sasquatch-looking creatures, were just walking out in the middle of the road, and they were dragging what appeared to be a deer carcass across the road. And they did not care that he was there. And he had to sit there while they literally pulled the head off of this creature, off of this deer. They took it apart, and then they both just kind of walked off into the woods, into the tree line. And that was probably 2 miles from this house where this child was having. There was obviously a ghost. I would say poltergeist activity. They tried to show us what looked like pink slime, some sort of ectoplasm, which I believe, you know, when you're going in and out of certain densities. And I was like, I'm not touching that. I don't know what that is, and I'm not going to touch it. I've seen it before. And then this creature, this dogman creature, is right there. Now, what are the odds? I mean, that's 2 miles from a sighting from the mid 40s or late 40s, early 50s. I can't remember if it was. There were two different ones. One was in 52, one was in 48, and I can't remember if that was the one. But anyway, and then there was another sighting of two hunters that were out dove hunting, or I think quail hunting. And they saw this Bigfoot type creature come rushing out at them, and I think that one was the one in the 50s. But you know, it's all within a 2 to 3 mile radius. You know, I don't think that's a coincidence. When somebody tries to tell me, you know, I'm like, okay, so there's a farm that has changed hands multiple times, and there is a poltergeist type activity going on there. There is a dog man there. Even the brother-in-law took a shot at it over a hay bale. And then, you know, within 2 or 3 miles of there were two different Bigfoot sightings, one in 1948, one in 1952. So, I mean, what are the odds? To me, you know, that's crazy, dude. I mean, you know, you might win the lottery, but winning it 2 or 3 times. So, and I don't believe that that's what's going on. You know, some of our colleagues, you know, Barton and me, you know, we've talked to lots of people about this phenomena, and they'll poo-poo the idea that somebody could see a UFO, a ghost, and a Bigfoot all on the same property. And I'm like, why not? They're all part of the same phenomena. If you really break it down, it's just hyper weirdness. And you look at some of these places like Skinwalker Ranch, where you have tons and tons of witnesses that can tell you that and it goes back to the Utes, to the natives. They're like, that land is messed up. You don't, you know, there's no telling what you're going to encounter there. It is what they call then the path of the Skinwalker, which is considered to be a highly evil creature of Navajo lore. And so they try to steer clear of that. And then, you know, here's these people, well, I'm going to go live there and I'm going to buy, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then you have people looking at it from the outside, looking in at guys like us too, who've had experiences. And they're like, well, that's crazy. That's crazy. You know, Josh Turner's lived in a haunted house and he saw a dog man. I think it's all related. I think you see the dog man because you're able to sense that, you know, and I think that that's all part of it. I tell people that all the time. When I was going through it when I was younger, I didn't know what was happening. But now, having researched so many different cases, and my team and all of us having talked to so many different people from so many different walks of life, and it transcends gender, race, religion, and all these people have these encounters. And so you're telling me that when someone sees more than one phenomena, that's just ridiculous. That's just crazy. And God forbid, Bigfoot should be doing something bad to somebody's pets or to them, because that can't happen. I just don't think it's a coincidence. I don't know exactly what y'all's opinions are. I'd like for you guys to tell me, what do you think about that? Do you, with the a whole haunted house, and then Bigfoot shows up with Dogman and no telling what else is going on? I mean, is that so crazy to think about? Or, I mean, are we not supposed to? Are we going?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You just summed up my book, Inhumanoids, rather nicely, and my life, Josh. I lived in 3 different locations where poltergeist activity was going on inside the house. People were seeing UFOs outside the house, including me and Bigfoot and Black Panthers. And the Spotsville case, we had 2 different types of inhumanoid creatures working together in the same place at the same time. Also, that correlates with Martin Grove's story he told at the conference.
Martin Groves.
Right? So Bigfoot was calling in these dogmen creatures to eat these 2 hunters. That's what it boils down to. And they barely got away with their lives. So,
Rob, do you know about that?
There is a connectivity.
I don't know if Rob knows about Martin Grove's encounter.
I haven't seen that yet. No, it's one of my list of things to do. Jessica was telling me it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Rob, let me send you. Yeah, he was on my show, and then he was on Bettina's show. If you want, I have a bunch of his books, and I can send it to you, Rob.
Okay, that's cool.
I'll send you along with awesome. a PRT shirt.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so Rob, you have a show, and why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the cases you've explored? Like, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you for asking. My show is on YouTube. Is called Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Very easy. Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Type it out, and you can find me on YouTube. And I'm on every Tuesday. I do a live show Thursday, at noon Central every day, every Thursday at noon. And we have mostly Bigfoot researchers on, and we also have experiencers on. I also read people's encounter stories on my channel. So it's got a nice variety. And what I was wanted to allude to on one of the encounters that we had, I was working on this, and this is a personal one of mine that I'm working with several people in the kind of in the ghost field, you guys, and this kind of relates, and this is like a case on me, because I got to say, in 2018, I had this encounter. Now, as a kid, you guys, I've been trying to figure out, when I was a little boy, 7 years old, I saw a flying saucer. That's what my mom called it. And I seen it, didn't know what it was. I said, "Ma, it looks like that flying saucer from Lost in Space." And sure enough, it was on the news that day, 5 o'clock news. My dad comes home, "Holy cow, Pam, you did see a flying saucer," because here it's all over the news. Later that year, we went up to our family cottage, again, about 7 years old. And in the bedroom where my brother would stay or sleep, there was a big bay window, and the moon would always illuminate the bedroom. And every night, right around midnight, because I remember being a little kid, he had that big old Mickey Mouse with the big hands, and there was always 12 by the time we went to bed. Every night, that moon would be covered by this big shadowy object, big figure. It would stand there and look in. The shadow, you could tell it was looking in, then it would move away. This happened every time we went, up until about the age of 9. So fast forwarding, I was talking to this lady. Again, I'm researching this. This is kind of my personal project. And this lady was telling me that I had encountered Bigfoot as a young kid. Supposedly, she's into this to communicate with spirits, supposedly Bigfoots and other sorts of unknown entities. In fact, this very same person told me that the encounter that I had at Lake Cadillac, that entity, and she calls it entity, you guys, was trying to get in touch with me, but I'm blocking him out. And I'm like, what, like that mind speak stuff? She goes, well, kind of. I said, well, no, I've got no communications. I wouldn't know where to begin with that one. It kind of floored me. In fact, she was on my show before and told me things on my show that floored me that I never told anybody in my life. Sure, anybody can find my encounter and come up with something, but there's personal things about my life as a kid that she told me. She told me about the time I saw ghosts on my wall. I was, again, about 7, 8 years old. And these ghosts, you guys, look like just like a basic white sheet over a pole with cut out black eyes. It haunted me forever. In fact, when I got married and moved on to my old house, my house with my wife back then, a ghost followed me to this house. I'd see the same thing. So I've been seeing things throughout my life, and I didn't realize it until I started studying the subjects dating back from 2018. About 20 years ago, well, not maybe that far, 15 years ago, I'm at my brother's house, and I'm sitting in a room, sleeping over, spending the night, and the room was pitch black, and I had at the time, my niece was about 5 or 6 years old. I'd be in the bedroom, sleeping. The door would open, I would see this shadowy figure. And it looks just like my niece. Long hair, but you can tell it's a person. It looks just like her, but the shadow outline. Hey, you want to come in, Uncle Robbie? I'll tell you a nighttime story or whatever. Then the door would shut. So this happened several times on several different nights that I'd spend the night because he lived a couple hours away, and usually we get together, and I was never in any shape to drive, so I was even thinking, man, what am I, blah, blah, blah. So one night this happens, and I see this figure of Lauren, and I jump out, and she shuts the door. I jump out of bed, and her bedroom is literally 10 feet down the hallway. And I run to her room. I get to the door. I open the door, and she is tucked in her bed, sound asleep. No way she could have gotten down and into her bed. About several months later, during Thanksgiving, I say, hey, look, I think your house is haunted. I keep thinking I'm seeing Lauren. My brother and sister look at me. Oh, my God, we see the same thing. And my mom, who was there, like I said, this was Thanksgiving, said the same thing. They've all seen her. And to make the story even further, Lauren would be talking into a closet to somebody, and because Lauren and my sister-in-law could see that because she had glass doors, so she could always look in on her, and she would always see her playing and seen her talking into the closet. And one day Karen walks in and says, hey, Lauren, who are you talking to? She says, my friend Jenny. He goes, oh, well, I can't see Jenny. She goes, no, she disappeared. She doesn't like adults or big people. And Karen goes, well, why is that, Lauren? She goes, well, because they murdered her family. So Karen's like, oh, my God, calls up my brother. I think we got to take Lauren to the doctor. I mean, she's telling me some really weird things that a 7-year-old should be talking about. So Lauren said, yeah, she talked to this little Jenny, like all the time, would see her, and she would talk and tell about how way back years ago, her whole family, as it turns out, they were Native Americans, and the white man massacred everybody, the whole tribe. So my brother did some investigation, found out, sure enough, this property is an actual burial ground for a tribe of First Nations people that did get slaughtered way back about in the 1800s. So my brother and sister-in-law, first of all, did not want Lauren to be seeing this entity. They moved 3 months later. They're out of the house in a new house. Now, a lot of the neighbors that my brother was friends with would call my brother and ask why he moved. And he said, you know what? He didn't really say. So one of the neighbors said, hey, Dave, I know what you're about to say. You've seen a ghost, didn't you? And my brother's like, well, yeah. And this is a neighbor. He goes, a lot of the neighbors in the neighborhood think this place is haunted, man. We all see ghosts. And my brother said, well, did you guys do the investigation? Did you guys look this up? He said, no. And he told them about it. 3 years later, you guys, you can't buy a house in this subdivision. If the house is way back when my brother bought it, was a $200,000 home. You could probably get it now for about $40,000. And it's creepy, eerily to drive past this place. There are people that live there, but now it's turned into like let's run down. I'll leave it at that for being nice, politically correct. So anyway, and I was telling you how I thought this. Now I was reverting back how this one ghost followed me from my childhood to my marital home. Now I seen this little ghost that I thought was my niece. Ended up probably makes sense that it was a little Indian girl. 6 months ago, this is very recent. 6 months ago, I'm in my bedroom and my door opens, and I see this figure, man. But it's not the figure of the 7-year-old niece. It's a more grown-up figure of a girl, right? Taller. And I see this thing, you guys, and I'm like, and it was like so weird, you guys. I said, Lauren, because she had a key that has a key to my house, but this is late at night, and certainly she would call before she came over. I said, Lauren, is that you? I get up, man, the door shuts. And I get up and I run to my door and I try to open my door, and my door is stuck. I can't open it. And all of a sudden it opens. And I run through my house. I check all the doors. I call my niece. I sounded like an idiot. Lauren, were you just over here? Uncle Rob, it's 3:30 in the morning, man. No. I said, I'm sorry to wake. I'm sorry. I'm like, don't worry about it. Go back to bed. And I hung up thinking, what the hell did I just see? And now this is where I'm at today, you guys. I don't know. It's why I'm investigating. I got a couple people help me with this. This one guy thinks he wants to do this regression therapy with me. He even thinks that I was even abducted by an alien when I had with these ghosts. And there's all sorts of weird things around the table. And I'm like trying to figure out entities and ghosts, they don't grow up, right? That Indian girl is the same. What was this that I see now? It looked just like, again, my niece, but as a full-grown woman now. Or maybe I was seeing things. I doubt it, man. And so I've investigated. And you guys, ever since my Bigfoot encounter, I'm remembering things vividly. I'm going back and I'm researching these things. I think everything, the moral to me telling you guys all of this is kind of what we talked about earlier. I think all of this is related. I think everything goes hand in hand. I believe there's paranormal aspects to all of this. I can't put my finger on it, but I think once you had an experience, your mind is now open, because now my mind is open to everything. And now I can almost like manifest things sometimes. It seems like I was sitting in my chair and I was thinking, I was watching this thing on demonology, right? And I'm thinking, man, I got to shut this off because I'm starting to creep myself up. And I'm thinking, I hope I don't guys, I'm saying this in my mind. I hope I don't get visited by some demon. Why am I watching this? And I'm thinking this way. For whatever reason, you guys, I don't know. Sure enough, man, a couple hours later, there's this mist, you guys, that starts coming down my hallway towards this chair that I'm in. This is this year. And it starts circling. It's hovering off the ground, 6 to 8 inches, man. It starts circling around my chair. And I'm just sitting there. And remember I told you how I was paralyzed and I saw the Bigfoot, I couldn't move? This same thing. I can't move now. I'm thinking maybe this was sleep paralysis, because I know that I'm awake. I can see everything in my area that I'm sitting. It's in the basement part of my house, and I can see everything. I can see this. I know I'm awake. I have to be awake. And I'm trying to shake my hand. Then I remember someone telling me, I said the Our Father, started saying, I believe in God. I ain't very religious. I'll just leave it at that. Started saying the Our Father, it went away. And so then I contacted this other person. They told me to get sage and all this. And I didn't buy into that. I said, well, I don't know. Maybe it was sleep paralysis. So about 3 months later, the same thing happened. And I prayed, went away. Then I got the sage. In fact, I had somebody come here and do like a cleansing, and did not have the problem since. Now, I haven't had none of these problems, you guys, until after I had this encounter.
So all this started after the Bigfoot, whatever it was, the encounter?
Yes, after that, with that encounter. But the thing is, though, as a little kid, though, constantly saw a Bigfoot looking through the window up north. As a little kid, I know I saw ghosts, and the ghosts followed me to my marital house. Well, as a little kid, it's the same ghost every time. Now, I had not seen that in many years. That kind of faded away, but it was very scary. I mean, I had that go on forever. And then, of course, at my brother's house, that's kind of explained. I kind of get that one with the massacre. But for me to see something that looked, again, like my niece, but grown up, what the hell is that? So it's like, man. So, you know, since I had these crazy manifestations have happened after the scary ones, right? I mean, the swirling and all that, I can't put my finger on it. Childhood ghosts, but these other things with the niece and that is like, and the swirling around the chair. These things after this encounter. Some guy was telling me maybe I'm marked. This guy believes in being marked. He said, once you see something, you're more apt to see it. And the more you think about these things, you can almost manifest these things. And, you know, we brought up Jessica Jones. I talk to her quite often. She's got a wealth of knowledge in the area telling me these things. So it's like, you know, it's almost like, you know, I never should have went to Lake Cadillac. I'm to the point, you guys, if I never went to Cadillac, my girl would probably be alive today. And sometimes I get down on this, like, what the hell was I thinking? But I was thinking like a normal man. Just wanted to go with my chick, right?
Well, yeah, you weren't thinking that you were going to run into. I mean, we leave our houses every day, and you know, we gamble. We don't even realize it.
Yeah, you know, plus, you know, go get in the paper, right? I'm never got the paper. Getting your mail out of your mailbox. You never know what happened. So we could slip out the stairs. So yeah, it's just like these things. Yeah, it's all come to the forefront, and I believe it's all connected. And I'm looking for answers, and that's where I'm at today. You know, with the show, I'm sorry I didn't really talk about anyone specific on the show, but this is something that I like to talk about because it's what I'm working on. It's kind of like my personal case that I'm working on, you know. And as far as the show goes and talking to people, a lot of people I talk to, man, they're like, I think more and more people are privy to the fact that these things aren't just flesh and blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some other element. You know, I had Ron Moorhead on the show. I love Ron Moorhead, the quantum theory. You know, Ron Moorhead thinks they're aliens. It could be, you know, so, and Ron Moorhead's respected. Right?
I mean, and what are aliens? Because, I mean, you know, they could be ultra-terrestrial, interdimensional, they could be extraterrestrial. I mean, there's all kinds of, one of the things like Rob, I don't know if you know this, but like Barton, you know, where he lives, I mean, is a massive cave system. So when you're looking at like Kentucky and Tennessee and you're driving through there, you know, I mean, like I've always believed that these things could have come from inner Earth. I mean, that, you know, and that there again, it doesn't mean that they're, you know, that they're physical. They come into our reality. And one of the theories that me and Linda kind of came up with together, like, she espoused it and I adopted it. I should say that. I don't want to say that. I don't want to give myself credit for where she came up with that, but I agree that these things, you know, and Barton, we've talked to her on the phone together. I mean, she believes that these things come and the longer that they're on our plane of existence, the more physical they have to become. And in fact, I think she said that on my show when we did the interview with her, our discussion, but it was so, to me, it just made sense. It just kind of brought it together because it's like these things, they come from wherever they come from, but when they're on our plane of existence, they have to play by a certain set of rules and they manifest themselves as physical. Now, people will say, oh, well, they're not metaphysical because by, you know, the very definition of them being able to physically harm and kill animals makes them a physical creature. Well, I can tell you this. I lived in a house that was haunted for 10 years. And I was slapped, not on my face, you know, but I was slapped on my back, and I had a light fixture come flying down at a weird angle and hit me on top of my head. I had an ex-girlfriend asleep in my bed who was something crawled into bed with her and tried to grab her, and then was pulling on her ankle and leg as she was trying to get away, and you know, and she was screaming on top of her lungs. I'm in the next room and I can't hear anything, you know, and I wasn't like I was playing video games with my friends, but you know, but we weren't talking that loud, and there was no loud music playing that would have muffled her voice. You know, I mean, like we should have been able to hear it, and we didn't know anything was going on until she came running down the hallway, freaking out, screaming. And I really believe that there is something to that. When you say that you lived in when you were a kid, you know, you had these experiences, and then they kind of reactivated when you saw this thing. That's what you're saying, right? Basically, Rob?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And, you know, the same thing, I think we're all in the same boat. Barton lived in a haunted house, and he saw a lot of weird stuff, you know, and you had these creatures that were accosting you and your family and killing your animals and pets. And I really, you know, there was this one house that I remember, it was, these people were friends of my mother's when she was little, and when they would babysit my mom. Well, growing up, you know, I always called her Aunt Terry. There was Terry and John. And they had a little small farm on the other side of Rockdale. It was in between Rockdale and Lexington. And, you know, John and her had a visitor that would come at night. She would call it a visitor because they couldn't never get a really good look at it. And they were like, oh, it would steal some eggs and it would disrupt a few things. Well, eventually, once they built a stronger coop and they put like some wood and everything that kind of could separate, you know, so that this visitor, whatever it was, couldn't go into the chicken coop. It was like what you said about them becoming acclimated to eating, you know, whatever. It freaked out, tore the whole thing apart, and literally killed every chicken in there. Like, it was angry because it didn't have access to the chickens and the eggs, so it killed them. Now, here's the weird part. They lived on a piece of land that was actually owned by a lady that had her house was like right next door to their houses were next door to each other, but they were way out in the middle of the country, and the next closest neighbor is probably a half a mile away. Well, the landlady that lived next door, I went to school with her son. He was a little bit older than me, but they saw this Bigfoot-like creature going around the back of the trash barrel. Now, out there in the country, burning the trash is how they got rid. That's how you get rid of your trash. You burn the trash. So you would put it in the trash barrel and you would burn it, whatever. This thing was walking around behind the trash barrel, and it was literally like it just faded away. Like it just kind of, like it was gone. Now, it's a 99% chance that that's the creature that destroyed the chicken coop and killed the chickens. Like, I mean, you're gonna, I mean, it's just simple math. I mean, you know, it's like, but it was an ethereal creature because how did it vanish? How did it walk, you know, like that behind the trash and then just disappear? But then it also was able to strangulate and kill and rip the heads off of chickens and you know, do what it did, you know. I mean, it was obviously, you know, a metaphysical thing. And so people they act like, oh, if it can do physical things, then that's a physical creature. Not necessarily, because these demonic entities can scratch you, claw you, pull you, and grab you and throw you and do all kinds of stuff to you.
You know what? Absolutely. And, you know, you'll have to talk to Tex. He's got some he was investigating a haunted house, you know, with his buddy Bob and Randy. And in fact, we had, he's got pictures of this. Next time, I'm not going to tell all the stories, but the one about physical. So his buddy Bob, they're in this haunted house doing some investigations. They had cameras and everything set up all over. And Bob, Tex hears Bob go, ow, damn, what, you know, damn it. So Tex is like, what's wrong? What happened? He goes, man, I feel like I just got whacked in the back with something. So he's lifting up the back of his shirt, and Tex goes over and looks, and he goes, damn Bob. He looks on the back. There's a big red mark on the lower side of his back. And when they took the picture, and me and Tex are looking at this, and we kind of blew it up and looked at it. And me and Tex said in unison, like we were reading each other's minds, it looked like it was a pentagram. And this is so physical, heck yeah. I mean, he's got a couple other pretty cool stories too about this place. And I'll let him talk about those next time you talk to him. But again, man, I believe in everything. And I don't know. And even as a kid, I think I blocked a lot of things out. Seeing the ghost as a little kid, I just thought maybe I was dreaming because maybe I didn't want to scare myself subconsciously. You know what I mean? And like they say, when this guy was telling me, Rob, you're just marked, and I said, well, come on, Mark. I don't believe anybody's marked. Sounds like we moved it from the devil. I certainly don't believe in that, but I certainly believe that my eyes and ears are more open. I believe that anything is possible now because I've gone through a lot of things. And like I said, the weirdest stuff has happened June 15th of 2018, man.
Yeah. And your girlfriend, I guess, and we'll close with this, but your girl, what did she think it was? Did she ever tell you?
No, remember, like I was saying, she goes, Rob, what did you think it was? What do you think it was, honey? She goes, well, I think it was that Bigfoot creature. And then I said, yeah, I think it was too. And then I made the comment, well, but the one that I've seen on Leonard Nimoy, I just remember Patty. I said, but really kind of didn't look like the one I remember seeing, the Patterson-Gimlin, It was the humanoid looking Down syndrome that it metamorphosized into a demon. That's what I always say, a demon.
And did she? But my question though, did she call it a demon, or did she think it was just like a Bigfoot?
No, she really. As we were doing some research, I don't know what this is. Because like I said, then we started looking online and stuff. Says, man, none of these things look like what we saw. I said, no, they don't, do they? And then she would say, man, now look at some of these. They look more devilish to her. She looks like a comic book character. I go, yeah, that's what I say too. She goes, yeah, if this is a Bigfoot, it don't certainly look like we've seen pictures on. You know what I mean?
Barton, what about, like what he described? How does that compare to what you described? The Spotsville monster.
Almost identical. And so all I can say is, welcome to the family, Rob. We call ourselves truthers. So once you take the blinders of the popular narrative that's been spoon-fed to us for 70 years or more off, you start to see that the relationship between all of these unexplained phenomena. And if you don't, most people just take one piece of the puzzle and study it. And it's the cryptid piece or the UFO piece or the ghost piece, but they never look at the whole puzzle at one time to identify the correlations that all these things have. So welcome to the family, brother. And it's good to have you here. Thanks. And we're growing exponentially. And all I can say is I could talk to you guys all night about all this stuff that happened. The thing in Spotsville killed 250 chickens. You was talking about chickens, brother. And killed all our chickens, all our animals, goats, our pigs, our horse. And they couldn't kill our dogs because we had a piece of underpinning of the house missing at the back doorsteps, right? And it was about 2 foot by 2 foot. And our dogs, which were some of the most vicious dogs we'd ever owned, even close family friends couldn't drive up to our house and get out of their car until we got the dogs off of them, right? So, but every time these creatures would come around, they would run underneath the house immediately. And we knew that the creatures were around from hearing our dogs bumping their heads on our floorboards. And Dad would say, oh hell, here it comes again. So once you take the blinders off, then you can really see that there is a connection between all these things. You shouldn't be able to live in a haunted house and see UFOs and Bigfoot and Black Panthers. The odds should be impossible to do that, but yet it's happened to me 3 times. It's happened to a lot of people. And, we're out to spread the truth. We're on a crusade to spread the truth. We're not we're not trying to be popular or get likes or YouTube views or money. We just want people to know the truth of what's really happening. And I think we can include you now that you're looking at all of it as a whole instead of one picture. You're seeing the correlations. I think we can include you in our group now. So it's great. It's great.
Go ahead, Rob.
And Bart, thank you for that too. Bart, I just want to make one quick comment. I know you got to go here. It's like, how can people not, though? Here's my thing. Once I jumped in that rabbit hole of Bigfoot, it took me everywhere, you guys. I mean, how can you miss all? You really have to have blinders on, because once I just thought I'd be investigating Bigfoot, right? Well, that spiraled out and branched out into a plethora of things that I never thought I'd be doing today. So it's like, to these people that are just one set of one opinion, I guess, you know, why you're hurting yourself and others. You really are.
Right. They have tunnel vision, Bob, and they can't see the whole picture. That's the problem. And how anybody can look into this stuff for decades, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, like some of the big name Bigfooters from, you know, back in the day, how they can look at this mystery for so long and not come to the truth within just a few years always bewildered me. And I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. They have to be extremely biased, and they have to let the evidence lead them to where they want to go instead of letting the evidence lead them to wherever it leads them. They only take the evidence that, you know, makes themselves right. You know, cognitive dissonance. You don't want to believe anything that goes against what you already steadfastly believe. So I think that's what's going on. And, you know, the truth needs to be told. And the truth is that these things are not normal creatures. They're not cryptids. They're not normal animals, natural animals waiting to be discovered. They're actually inhumanoids, which is something above and beyond that.
You know, and to close this out, oh, Rob, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, I just agree with Barton was saying. I absolutely agree, and I like that, inhumanoid.
Mm-hmm. Because that's a good term. And to close this out, guys, to me, it takes an extreme amount of mental gymnastics to totally tumble past every single fact that's thrown in your face, and it's, to me, it's willful ignorance, and that's all I'm going to say about that. And Rob, it's been a pleasure having you on. Having talked to you multiple times, we got you in here and we recorded. Barton, I told you wouldn't be disappointed. Rob's good, and
right, you were sure right. It's an amazing story, really bizarre, and so much of it is really familiar to me because I've lived it myself. So
I haven't personally seen a Bigfoot like you guys. I may have seen something from the back side, you know, but my wife saw it like way better. But I can tell you this, you know, the reports that I get of these things and their behavior belies a lot of this. Oh, you know, Harry and the Hendersons we're just all getting along out here. I don't see that part. I see the truth. And I think I still stand by this. I've caught multiple people trying to pass me a bill of goods that I just don't. I'm like, that doesn't sound right to me. You know, telling me that they came up and were knocking on their RV door politely, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, I believe that. That's
right.
Yeah,
for sure. Asking for things like, you know.
And the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl. Okay, yeah, whatever. I mean,
my God, yeah.
I had to take a shot at you, Martin.
Right. So people that say these things come up and knock on their doors and ask for garlic, for example.
Yeah. I've heard that too. Like they want something like herbs and spices. You know, they're right. It's like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, but
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Gentlemen, it's been great. It's been nice. Everybody, Paranormal Roundtable. And that's our discussion. Me and Barton Nunley with Michigan Rob. Once again, give the people the coordinates where they can find you.
Yeah, very simply on YouTube, the Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Type it in, hit enter, subscribe. For those on Twitter, I'm at Rob_Bigfoot. I've got the group on Facebook. It's very easy. It's Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. That's the name of my show, which airs noon Central every Thursday. And I'm also on live with Tex and Jason on Texas Front Porch, and that is it's actually Bigfoot Michigan Rob. We simulcast, and that's also on Wednesdays. I'm on the air almost 3-5 days a week. The days I'm on is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
Sporadic time, and it's in my YouTube channel. You guys can find all that information there. So yeah, I would appreciate that, and check out all my stuff. There's a pretty good there's a variety of things on my channel.
Yeah, and we enjoyed having
I'll sure be doing that.
Yeah, we enjoyed having you on and conversating with us. All right, gentlemen, for everyone here at Paranormal Roundtable, Josh Turner, Barton Nunley, Michigan Rob, good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.